Welcome back to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and more importantly, welcome to 2021. My name is Jake Wright. I'm the Youth and Education Manager here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, as we call it, the most inspiring place on earth. And I'm excited to be back in the studio. I want to thank Nathan Martin, our Youth and Education Coordinator, for filling in for me the last couple of times. We were live with you guys for this Before the Snap program, but I'm happy to be back. Happy to be back in the studio, and more importantly, happy to be talking to our special guest today. If this is your first time tuning in today, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to give this program a watch. This Before the Snap series is going to teach you a little bit about all the different types of careers in and around the NFL. And believe it or not, there's more than just being a player. There's more than just being a coach. There are so many different ones. And today we're going to focus on marketing kind of as of the category for today. If this is your second time, third time, or you're a regular viewer of this program, thank you so much for tuning in again. You guys are in for an excellent program. A little bit about us here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Our mission is to honor the heroes of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence everywhere. And those values we promote are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence, all of which not only make you a Hall of Fame football player and a Hall of Fame person, but they make you a great employee. And I'm excited to see how those values impacted our special guest throughout his entire career up to where we are today. Before we do get started, I do want to thank our special guest, Mr. Scott Lantis of the Denver Broncos, for being a part of the program today. But more importantly, for everything you've done for the game of football. And we'll talk here at the end, how important it is, whatever career it is in the NFL, how important it is. It's not only the game of football, but even to us here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So thank you for all that you do on a day-to-day basis throughout the entire year within the NFL. Secondly, I'd like to thank our teachers, administrators, professors, any educator out there that allowed us to come into their classroom today. We know this year, I can't even say that anymore. We know that this school year has been very crazy, and we are with all the different ways that learning is taking place. So I'm excited, and I'm thankful for you allowing us to help be a part of that. I'd like to also thank our students. Without you guys today, this program doesn't take place, and we're excited to teach all those students out there, whether you're a high school, college student, or you're a young professional like myself or Mr. Lantis, to kind of teach you about all the great things that are out there in and around the NFL. And if you are a student today, we're watching us on Facebook Live. We've got the comment section open. Tell us your name, your school. Let us know we got all these people tuning in from today. We want to see how far across the country we can get. So throw up a Roll Tide, throw up an OH if you're an Ohio State fan. I know we got the national championship coming up here on Monday. And I'm just going to say I'm a little biased. I am cheering for the Buckeyes. But wherever you're at, let us know. And if you have a question, make sure to ask that in the comment section as well. And we'll do our best to make it a part of the program. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our special guest today. Scott Lantis received his BA from Hillsdale College in Hillsdale, Michigan, with a degree in marketing management while playing Division II baseball and football for the Hillsdale Chargers. And side note, there's a little relationship you have with some folks here at the Hall of Fame through there as well. He started his professional career with Glacier Clinics in Colorado Springs, Colorado, while being responsible for the event management and digital marketing for a nationwide leader in football coaching resources. In June of 2014, he started his NFL career as the marketing and sponsorship special events in August of 2014 with the Denver Broncos. He then transitioned to marketing manager, his current position, in 2018, and now handles media sales, inventory, and executes multi-platform marketing strategies for all Denver Broncos fan segments, affinity groups, and fan development initiatives. So that is enough for me. I'd like to welcome and turn things over to our special guest today, Mr. Scott Lantis. Scott, welcome to Before the Snap.
Hey, thank you, Jake. Obviously, admire and respect everything that the Hall of Fame stands for. So just very honored to be here today.
Well, we appreciate this, and we're going to start it out just like we do every program. Can you kind of give us a day-to-day 10,000-foot view, dive into some details on what the marketing manager for the Denver Broncos, or maybe even any professional organization, kind of does on a day-to-day basis, and some of the initiatives that you're in charge of?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of funny, Jake, when I first started with the Broncos and told a bunch of friends that I was going to do marketing for the Denver Broncos, I had some friends kind of laugh and say, doesn't Peyton Manning just do your job for you? As true as that was a little bit at the time, I think, we're in a very unique situation in Denver. As a marketing department, our marketing function is a little bit different than probably most marketing departments across professional sports. We are not tasked with put butts in the seats. We don't support our ticket sales team, much like many other marketing departments do. We're very blessed and fortunate in Denver. We've been sold out every single game since 1960. We've got 70,000 plus names on a season ticket holder waiting list. It's somewhere between a 12 to 15 year wait to get season tickets. And so we aren't tasked with, marketing activities that help sell tickets. And so, with that, it's a unique stat that we throw around in the marketing department pretty frequently. But because of the lack of ticket inventory that's available, 97% of Broncos fans will never watch a game at Empower Field at Mile High in our stadium. 97%. And so with that, that's where we in the marketing department come into play. We're tasked with creating, programs and touch points and just fan development and fan engagement activities specifically for that 97% of fans that aren't experiencing, game day at our stadium. And so we take a real strategic approach to looking at Broncos country and segmenting our fans into different groups that we can pour resources and touch points into. And so we work pretty heavily with the youth demographic, Hispanic marketing. We have a military program. We work with out-of-market fans, which we identify as any Broncos fan that lives outside of Colorado. And I can tell you, Broncos country is strong both here across the nation and internationally. And then we also have a couple programs that we do in the health and wellness space, utilizing kind of the power of our brand to impact our fans' lives and encourage them to make healthy decisions in their lives. And so it's really fun for me as a marketing manager to really live in the fans' shoes on a daily basis, put myself in the shoes of different fans and really see what they're looking for and what the Broncos brand can bring or do for them, right? Because the truth of the matter is the 10-year-old Broncos fan living in Colorado Springs is probably looking for something a little bit different from the Denver Broncos than the 50-year-old Broncos fan living in Canton. And so we get a chance to sit down and strategize the way that we're going to package and deliver the Broncos to these different fan segments, how we're going to communicate it, and ultimately we get to come up with some really fun and cool things, whether it's an event or content or promotions. And so that's all great, and it's fun that I get a chance to live in that space. But that begs the question: okay, where is the revenue component of this? And so we work very closely with our sales and sponsorship team to give them the resources necessary to monetize a lot of these programs, events, and pieces of content that we collaborate on producing. And so that part's great, where we're able to go out to some of our corporate partners and marry them to certain components of what we do on the marketing side. And so really, that's in a nutshell what we do. We're a service department in the marketing department, serving our fans, serving our sponsors, and again, it's just a lot of fun to really just view everything that we do from the lens of a Broncos fan, because at the end of the day, we have jobs because of the passion and strength of the Broncos country. So that is what we do in the marketing department, and what we get to live day in and day out.
I got a couple questions off that. The first one I want to talk about, and you mentioned a lot there, there's so much strategy and almost competition, like within yourself and within your department, not with anybody else, but to kind of come up with that best product. And you relate being an athlete into that. So how did, growing up a sports fan and an athlete playing collegiate sports kind of help fuel that competition to where you're almost going up against the odds or all those different strategies out there to find the best one? And then at the end of the day, is there like a quote unquote winning moment for you? Like, you win a game, but do you win a strategy? Do you win a segment? How does those two pieces kind of play together in your career?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. My dream was always to play professional baseball, and when I got to college and couldn't hit the curveball, I realized that I was going to have to transition to a different field or a different job, and always kind of wondered, that winning moment in sports growing up. Well, was there ever going to be a thing that would replicate that? And I think to your first point, the competition piece is something that has been in my life. Has been a core kind of function of who I am my entire life, and has really kind of built me to the young professional that I am. But I'll tell you what, when you show up on a game day after putting a lot of time and effort into, a pregame promotion or an in-game entertainment component, or, you work on promoting and creating an event for an entire summer, and, you've got 5,000 people showing up to that event. That's the closest thing that I can compare to, a game-winning hit or scoring a touchdown. Because, there is a lot of satisfaction. It's no different than sports, where you put a lot of time and effort and preparation into practice, and strength training and all these things that, you get to enjoy and reap the benefits of that on a game day. It's no different in marketing, right? Some of our events or our promotions, we're collaborating and developing and idea generating 9 months before it actually happens. And then we're promoting it and selling it. And then you're putting in the execution plan. And so when the event or the concept comes to fruition, that's definitely a very similar feeling to, competing as an athlete on game day.
And then, the second part that I kind of thought of, is when you get to college, or you're someone who likes sports. Me, I wasn't good enough to play sports in college, so I just, retired after high school. But, you get to that point to where, you're not going to, like you said, that professional athlete, that's the dream, that's the goal, but I'm not going to make it there. And when you work in the sports field, the main, the 10,000 foot thing, I want to be in sports marketing. And so with that title, how broad is the title sports marketing? You talked a lot about your job on a day-to-day basis. And when you think of, normal marketing, personally, that's something I wouldn't even have thought of, under that umbrella. So when you say sport marketing, or someone says they major in sport marketing, how broad, can that umbrella be?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, as I mentioned, our marketing team is structured a little bit differently. But I think if you look across, NFL teams, the way that marketing departments are structured, ingrained in the sponsorship component as well. There's a lot of community assets as well. I think, sports marketing is different from team to team. But I will say, even more general, Jake, individuals that are looking to get involved in sports, not just sports marketing, there are a million different avenues to get there, right? If you look at us as the Broncos, we've got finance, we've got community, we've got marketing, we've got sponsorships, we've got facilities, we've got PR, right? And I think, the sports industry as a whole is very broad, right? You can take a skill set with just about any major and apply it to the sports industry. I think that's what's so great about it. And my advice to young professionals, maybe looking to do sports or are passionate about sports, find a skill set or a major or something that you're interested in, that you're passionate about, because ultimately, if you're interested in being involved in sports, there are avenues to utilize that skill set or that major in the sports entertainment industry.
So let's say, you're a high school student who just did that. They find the niche, they find that pocket they want to be in, they find what their passion is, they get to college. And then so when they're at college, when I was there, networking, obviously a huge proponent from my professors and my advisors, to build that network. Something looking back, I wish I would have done a little bit more of, looking at all the great opportunities there are out there today. So for somebody who works in the sports field specifically, building your relationships and building your network is very important. So for those students who have those shoes on right now, or who are in that place in their career, what advice would you give to them to kind of help them start to build or continue to build and strengthen their network?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, speaking on behalf of probably just about every professional in the industry, everyone knew someone, right, that allowed them to get where they need to go. I can tell you, when I started as an intern with the Broncos, there was 1,500 applicants for 5 positions, right? And so there's just such a huge demand and desire for people to be involved in the industry. And it's a small industry. There's not a ton of open opportunities on any given season. And so the networking piece is really important. And I was very fortunate as a young professional. Tom Heckert, the director of pro personnel at the time with the Broncos, was a family friend and a Hillsdale College connection. And so through networking with him and developing a relationship with him, I got my opportunity. And so I think, speaking to some of the young professionals on the call, networking, it's a little awkward at times. It's a little unnatural at times, but it's absolutely a necessity. I think, my recommendation of how to go about doing that, I think, I appreciate, young professionals that reach out in boldness, whether it's a cold call or find my email address and look to set up an informational interview. I think that shows a lot to me. That shows a lot of initiative and willingness to really be involved. I would say, definitely recognize and have some awareness when reaching out and trying to network. If I get an email or a call on a game day, probably not going to be as receptive to something like that. So, and understand, what you're trying to get out of that networking opportunity. We get, whenever a Broncos job is posted, we get inundated with a lot of people that now all of a sudden, want to develop a relationship and then ask questions. So I think networking isn't something that you do only when you see a job opportunity on the horizon. I think it's something that you should be constantly doing. It's something that I still do, every week, currently. And so I think it's really important to build a network of people that can speak on your behalf. And the industry is small. Everyone works for everyone and everyone knows everyone. And so, I know my counterparts, across the leagues. And so if you build a relationship with me, hopefully I'm then able to put in a good word for you. And we've had so many success stories at the Broncos. I can think of one individual that's now working at an agency, that reached out his sophomore year of high school just to have an informational interview with me, very tactfully followed up every few months. He walked into an intern interview and I hired him at the end of the conversation because he had done such a great job, building his reputation with me. And so I think that, to your point, Jake, it's an absolute necessity and something that, even outside of just gaining experience is probably just as important just because of the nature of the industry.
And I think that's a great point there because, when you're sitting in that college classroom and your professors are telling you this is what you have to do, and you're like, yeah, okay, all right, I'll go do it. But to give that real life example of somebody who's, 15, 16 years old reaching out to you and then continuing to following up, you said it right there. Like he or she probably didn't need an interview actually, but that was just part of the process. And you knew going in, I'm going to hire this person because of the work that they put in. So I think that's a great real life example of how networking can pay off, in the end game. Got a question here on Facebook. This is from Lucas. He's a student at CU Boulder. So right out there in Broncos country. He said, with the season wrapped up, what were some of your favorite marketing initiatives employed this season with some of the difficulties and how unique of a football season this was?
Yeah, absolutely. Historically, we've been pretty event heavy in the Broncos marketing department. And, you take away the ability to utilize some of our kind of physical assets, whether it's, Miles the mascot or our cheerleaders or our alumni or our players or our stadium, right? And you take away kind of all of these components that we have in our repertoire that we use to engage with fans. It really creates a huge challenge for us. So obviously, we had to go virtually with a lot of our different promotions and touch points with our fans. And I think we're better off because of it. Some of the highlights that we collaborated with our broadcast team and our sponsorship team, we host a draft party every year. And so we did a virtual war room draft party to kick off the calendar year and had great engagement and viewership. And really was, something that will live on after 2020, and a lot of these things that we did virtually this year, we learned a lot, we increased our scope and our scale. And so I think as we looked at 2021, there'll be a little bit of a hybrid of virtual and physical, components of these things. I think of one of our kind of cornerstone events for our health and wellness platform is our Broncos 7K run every Labor Day. We did a virtual 7K this year. We had somebody running a Broncos 7K literally at the Coliseum in Rome and in downtown Tokyo and London. And so these are people that we were able to engage with and bring into kind of our programs without that were never able to do so before because it was just a physical event in Denver, right? And so I think we've learned a lot about doing things virtually that will really allow us to be more efficient and reach more fans in 2021. And then I think the other piece is, the content piece. We have a broadcast team, we have a social team, but my coworker who runs all of our Hispanic marketing initiatives, previously that was an initiative that was some grassroots marketing, a large scale event, and then Hispanic Heritage Month. She's developed an entire Spanish language content platform, and that came, and it was always in the works, but I think it was accelerated because of COVID-19 and because we were forced to adjust the way that we interact with our fans. And so kind of a long answer to Lucas's question, but I think we've become a little bit more agile and innovative with a lot of the things that we've done in 2020 that will really serve us well in 2021.
I think that can go for a lot of people, even us here at the Hall of Fame. You have to adjust, call the audible, to use a football cliche, and kind of redirect your game plan, another cliche, to get yourself, set up for the right thing. And I think that goes along, and going through something like the pandemic and having to adjust all these different things, you really kind of have to look yourself in the mirror and go, because there's so many different challenges that are going to be a part of, your new day-to-day work. And you have to look yourself in the mirror and go, do I want to be here? Do I want to change roles? And I think, coming out of this, you're going to show just, how much, you love what you do and how much you love your career. So, just looking at that, you work, they say you never work a day in your life if you love what you do. So, looking at what you do on a day-to-day basis, why do you love, going into work every day and working for the Broncos organization?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first and foremost, I'm very blessed to have, unbelievable teammates and coworkers that I work with each and every day. And I have been so blessed by their input in me personally and professionally. So first and foremost, I get excited to work every day because of the people that I work for and alongside. And I think that, that can't be emphasized enough. But I think, what gets me really excited to go to work every day or go to my basement to my computer every day to work now is, and I don't mean this, disrespectfully, but we're not marketing, car insurance or, what are other things. The product that is the NFL is an exciting product. The consumer gets excited about the product, right? The product that is the NFL is something that, owns multiple days of the week in the fall in this country. And so what gets me excited is just the ability to play a very, very small part in the team meeting the fans and being involved in that piece. And so, you show up to a game day and you see 77,000 fans screaming in their orange. You get emails from fans that say, hey, you know what? My father passed away, but I will always have the memory of going to Broncos games with him. You see the work that our community department does, serving, sick children or helping with COVID relief, all these things. You see the platform that the Broncos have and the impact that they have on our fans' lives. As kind of weird as that sounds, we are involved in our fans' lives, right? And I think that's something that, it's a product that's worthy of being marketed in my mind. And it's an organization that is, I'm honored to be involved with. But I think that's what gets me excited is just seeing the passion of our fans and knowing, in a very small way, you were a steward of that.
Absolutely. I think, this year with there not being so many fans at games, I think that was kind of really, was exemplified. You think it would be the other way that, more fans at games equals more stories like that. But, when you take something like that away, you kind of find all those really, heartfelt, heartwarming stories about like you mentioned, whether it's a family member or some specific thing that they do every day. There obviously are perks to every job out there. There's things that you get to do within your career, within the organization that not a lot of other people get to do. And, sports kind of, pushes that even further, beginning to be involved in so many different things. And you were actually with the Broncos when they were in Super Bowl 50 and won that game. So normally we have the question is, what was your favorite moment? But I can assume that was probably up there. Got to be number one or two. So being part of that experience and seeing not only a Super Bowl victory for the organization, but that entire atmosphere, what was that like, working for the Broncos during that time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was an unbelievable experience for me, both personally and professionally. Professionally, there was a little bit of a transition in our department, and we were actually without a marketing director for almost that entire season. And so we were a little bit short-staffed and got an opportunity to learn and kind of get thrown in the fire in certain circumstances throughout that entire season. And so professionally, it was awesome to kind of have all of your hard work culminate in something, something like a Super Bowl. And I think, I definitely recognize the fact that, 2 years into the industry, I got a chance to be working for a team that won a Super Bowl, right? There's people that work in this industry for their entire lives and never have that opportunity. So recognized how blessed and unique of a situation that was. But yeah, I think what the Broncos did really well is, gave us all kinds of resources to really try to bring Broncos country to the Bay Area that week. Every single day we were out there for an entire week in the Bay Area. Every day there was a Broncos fan activation going on. We bought out one of the kind of tour boats around the Bay and packed it with Broncos fans. We did fan group parties every single night, had a giant pep rally the day before the game. And so an awesome learning experience. We saw Broncos country travel so well. And then the really cool thing about it was that on game day, we were pretty much off the clock, got a chance to go to the game and experience it as a fan. And through the generosity of the Bolin family and the Broncos organization, every full-time staff member was able to bring a +1. And so my father got to come out and experience the Super Bowl with me. And I think, we talk all the time in the marketing team about, we're in the business of building memories. And I think, the moment standing there with the gold confetti raining down in the field, standing next to my father, experiencing, Super Bowl 50 together will probably be one of the fondest memories that I have with him for the rest of my life. So the irony being that, my dad is a diehard Denver Broncos fan. And so that was a pretty awesome moment for me, both personally and professionally, to be able to, put a lot of work into, to the activations and everything leading up to Super Bowl 50. But then that moment there, with my dad, really kind of drew to light how important the work that we do and the work that sports, can provide, what sports can provide from, a family memories and connections perspective. I think I learned a lot in that moment just about why, what we do in the marketing team.
I think that's great. The cherry on top of the entire thing, you put in all the work and you see all the great work that goes, but then, to take that huge step forward and bring home the Lombardi trophy, not only great for you and your family, and your dad there, but for the entire organization. And, one of those guys that helped bring that Lombardi trophy home is a quarterback by the name of Peyton Manning. And we'll talk a little bit about him here in a second. But what I want to do is I actually want to send it out into our museum, into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, to our Director of Youth and Education, Mr. Jerry Shockey, who's in front of an artifact from that very special quarterback. So, Jerry, are you there?
Yes, I am. Jake, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we got you. Whenever you're ready, take it away.
Okay, perfect. So I want to welcome everyone that's tuning in on Facebook Live, students from colleges, universities, high school students, college, and beyond that are connected in here today. I'm here at the Pro Football Today Gallery where we highlight the game's most recent records and milestones. Again, my name is Jerry Shockey. I'm the Director of Youth and Education here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But today, I'm standing in front of a pretty special jersey that Peyton Manning wore when he made NFL history back in 2014. While playing as quarterback for the Denver Broncos, Manning made NFL history by throwing his 509th career passing touchdown to break the record that Hall of Famer Brett Favre once held. We are honored to have his jersey and the football here that he threw on this historic play here on display here in Canton, Ohio. Now, Scott, I got a question for you. Since we're in front of this jersey and talking about the great Peyton Manning, I was kind of wondering, I'm sure some of the students that are tuning in here are wondering, there's a lot of perks with our jobs, working here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame and work with the Broncos. What interactions do you have in your position as marketing manager with the players?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're in a little bit of a unique situation where we, as I mentioned earlier, we utilize our players for a lot of different things, both on the marketing and the community side. And so, our players are great ambassadors, for the organization. And, I can tell you honestly that, again, only working with one team, but I can't imagine a better group of men to represent not only the organization, but, the values that Mr. Bolin, instilled as the owner for our organization. And so I get a chance to work with them on a lot of our marketing and sponsorship appearances. My counterpart on the community side does the majority of that heavy lifting, and I haven't been as involved this year. But do get in a normal non-COVID year, do get an opportunity to work alongside our guys, to get them out in the community and do some marketing and sponsorship appearances. And it's really nice that you don't have to coach up our guys very much. They get it, and I think that's just another reason that I'm proud to work for the organization and work alongside these guys. Because they're such great ambassadors, and recognize that they've been given a platform for impacting fans' lives, being involved in important causes, and all those types of things. And so it's great. It's fun to be around the guys, but usually we're running around with them, at events and that kind of stuff. So haven't had a chance to really develop into relationships, but work alongside them in a lot of our marketing and sponsorship events.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Scott. Hey, Jake, I'm going to send it right back to you.
All right. Thanks, Jerry. And I think that's a great point. We talk about Peyton Manning, obviously If you're a football fan, you've seen the announcements come out. Peyton Manning is a finalist for the class of 2021 here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And like I always say, I don't have a vote, but his career speaks for itself. And if he doesn't get a bronze bust this year, he's going to get one sometime down the road. So for you in your position, when you have a guy like Peyton Manning, or, in recent years, Brian Dawkins, Champ Bailey, Mr. Bolin, though, when those guys, kind of get that call, get that famous knock on the door from our president, David Baker, what does your organization, kind of do with that? Is there a sprint to get content out? Is there events that need to be starting to plan? What does, your department focus on when that guy does get that knock on the door and become a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the you can add, Steve Atwater to that list, our most recent Hall of Famer. And I can tell you, as a Hall of Famer on the field, he's a Hall of Fame person as well. Steve works in our department alongside all of us. And so very excited when he got that knock. And unfortunately, he's got to wait a little bit longer, but we are so excited for him and his family. And so, yeah, we've been very fortunate the last few years to have numerous inductees into the Hall of Fame. I think as an organization, I think everyone celebrates that. Even myself, who was not here when any of these guys played, it's a source of pride for everyone across the organization to be able to know that we've had men be representative of the organization and get recognized on a national scale. And so, to answer your question, a lot of the content stuff comes from our social and digital and video team. But us on the marketing side, we were able to, 2 years ago in Canton, throw a fan party for our Ohio Broncos fans. And I was also very privileged to get a chance to attend the Hall of Fame party for Mr. Bolin. And you talk about one of those pinch me moments. I think that was one of the first ones where you're walking around with, gold jackets all over the place and getting a chance to see, the icons of the game in person. So yeah, I think we celebrate Steve. Hopefully celebrating Peyton very very soon, and it's just a source of pride and excitement for everybody across the organization, knowing that they're representing us.
I know we're always excited to welcome our NFL family here, whether it be employees of teams, Gold Jackets, legends, whatever it might be. I know we're excited to looking forward to what we're calling, twice the fun in 21, where we get to induct not only Mr. Otwater's class of 2020, but that class of 2021 as well. Something you mentioned, you were talking about your career there, and you mentioned Mr. Bolin and the values he instilled, within the organization. And I'm sure that carries not only to the team, but throughout the non-football side, the business side as well. Here at the Hall of Fame, we're unapologetically football. I mentioned our values at the beginning, and we believe that the game of football can teach so much about your life, whether you play it, watch it, coach it, whatever it might be. So for you, you kind of have the unique perspective to where you played the game growing up, you played in college, and you see firsthand what the game of football can do. So for somebody who played the game and now works in the NFL, what does the game of football, how important is it to all those people who watch it, coach it, play it, and what life lessons can they take away from it?
Yeah, I think, as a player, the greatest life lesson that I learned from football is, how to be a great teammate. And I'll tell you what, when I'm interviewing, somebody for an internship position, that is always one of the first questions. That's the staple question. How do you define a great teammate? I think that's something that I learned, as a player, how to serve your fellow teammates well, how to do difficult things together, all these different great life lessons that a very hard and challenging game like football can teach you are things that have translated into my professional career. How can we as a marketing department serve other departments well? How can we rely on each other, right? So a lot of those intangibles that you learn and develop while playing the game are also very transferable, to the professional setting, things that, I've learned how to lead and how to compete and all these different things I think have served me well and are a result of playing the game of football. So I think from a player side, you get all of those different things, but from the professional side, and I've alluded to this time and again, the NFL has, the Football is Family campaign. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that, where, we have, in the middle of COVID, when you weren't allowed to meet together, the Broncos were still allowed in people's homes on the television every weekend, right? And so provided a medium for families to have a topic of conversation for families to that are suffering and dealing with all of the things that COVID brought. Football provided a means of safety, or something familiar to go back to, something that was worthy of their attention, and something to be a distraction in times of challenge. And I think that's the great thing. I think that football has provided our country in the middle of everything that 2020 brought, is a means for connections and an outlet. And so I think I have a unique perspective as a player, as a fan, as a professional, but I think some of these values that the Hall of Fame mentions definitely ring true at all different levels with the game of football, because it is the greatest game in the world.
Absolutely. And we got another question here from Facebook, and this was actually one I was going to get to. So this question was stolen from me, but this is from Logan, a student at Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts. They want to know, how do you measure success in your job and in your department? So what does that measure of success? Because, accounting, they can say, we made money, there's physical, tangible evidence that they have, that shows success. The team obviously wins and losses determine that. But for you, how is success determined with your job and your department?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Logan. And I think that's a great question, because as I mentioned, there isn't a direct or super easy ROI that you can see from everything that we do, right? We're not running a promotion that we see the ticket sales associated with that. Some of our the ways that we define success won't be recognized for years down the road, right? If we create an awesome event for a 10-year-old Broncos fan, he might not be a season ticket member or purchase his own merchandise for years down the road, right? So there's kind of this, hey, we're building the next generation of Broncos fan, but what does that look like, and how can we justify what we do? So I think it varies from different, fan segments that I mentioned. A lot of times for these events, we're judged on attendance, on content, it's viewers and impressions. We're also judged on if we can create assets that are able to be monetized by our sponsorship team. Every time one of our sponsorship sales, individuals sells a deal that has some of our marketing assets in it, that's a big win for us. We take a lot of pride in that, and being able to create something that is able to be monetized and generate revenue for the organization. So, not a great answer to a specific answer to Logan's question, but I think, we sit here and set up, what our KPIs are and what our measurements of success are based on every single different event, touch point, promotion, and fan development program that we do. And that, definition of success is a little bit different, each and every time. And also, we're very, data analytics are an important piece of what we do. When I started with the organization 7 seasons ago, we didn't have, a data analytics department, or even anyone specifically doing business intelligence or data analytics. We've got an entire department now, right? And so we utilize those guys, to create surveys and do a lot of market research to see, hey, if what we're doing is actually something that the fans want. Are these things that we're developing actually what our fans are looking for, and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit of a moving target at times, but we like to think that in the process of creating great memories, there's some successes there.
I'm super happy you brought up that department, because I have another great question from Facebook, and this is from Jack, who's a student at the University of Virginia. He want to know, how did the emergence of that sports analytics over the past decade, altered the job landscape in the NFL? So first and foremost, obviously it created a whole new set of jobs for people to have across every different sports organization. But you mentioned how there was a little effect to your career as well. So how is that department being created, that field kind of emerging as one of the popular ones, helped or hurt you in the things that you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, first and foremost, our business intelligence team helps, just pretty much every single department across the organization. And when I first started with the Broncos, there was a lot of things that we did that, were maybe just based on intuition or, kind of our feeling, right? And we used our business intelligence and our analytics folks, a few years ago to really take a hard dive into, hey, why are we doing what we're doing? Is it worth, pouring resources into? And I think a great example of that is, we had a women's program that we were pouring a lot of time and resources into, and what we thought our female fans were looking for from the Broncos. And, using our data and analytics group and generating a bunch of surveys over the course of numerous months, we realized that our female fans were saying, hey, why are you catering specific football content to us? We're just Broncos fans. and we were able to look and say, hey, we're almost 50-50 male and female Broncos fans. Why are we, tailoring and changing our specific approach to just women? They're Broncos fans and they're knowledgeable and they love the game. And so that is a kind of a small example of how we use kind of surveys, data, and analytics to completely pivot our strategy in working with our female fans. So we rely on data-driven decisions each and every day. I have to be able to justify why we're going to do something, and data has to back it up, or otherwise we're not going to throw resources at it. And so I think it's the emergence of that department has allowed us to be smarter, to be a little bit more effective in our marketing tactics, and also to utilize use our resources more efficiently. And so and I will say, because I know this is geared towards young professionals, that's probably the largest emerging department or facet of sports right now. It's quickly growing, and so I think for any of you that are in college, get into those stats classes, get into some of those data and analytics opportunities that you might have at your schools, because I would say that's the biggest opportunity right now in the industry.
I think it's a great way to show, that the industry is ever changing. And you always kind of have to be on your A game to make sure that you can, you're the best employee that you can be. So, thanks to technology, things like Zoom and Facebook and YouTube and so many different things out there to where you can utilize these services to help you become a better, insert whatever, title that you have. What are some things you do to make yourself the best marketing manager that you can be? Do you, go to conferences? Are there specific books you read? Do you look for insight from other professionals? What are some things you do to kind of keep you at your A game?
Yeah, absolutely. I read a lot. We joke in our organization, our COO, Mac Freeman, is the most read person we know. Every time anyone has a discussion with him about anything, he mentions, well, I was reading, and so that's something that I've learned, to be really well read in the industry is important. We subscribe to Sports Business Daily. That's a great resource that I would recommend for a lot of young professionals to check out, where just to be up to date on industry practices, best practices, and just be knowledgeable of what's going on in the industry. So that's I read Sports Business Daily every day with my cup of coffee. That's a routine of mine. And then I attend conferences. The Broncos are really great about giving us professional development opportunities to travel to conferences. Obviously, this year it's been a lot of virtual conferences. Sports Techie is a great resource. Watch a lot of webinars there, and read a lot. I think those are the two biggest things that we can do as a professional, and kind of having that constant growth perspective. Because even in 7 years in the industry, a lot of things have changed about best practices and the way our fans consume the game, consume the product. You got to be on top of these things. And so that's something that I constantly do. And then, we talked about the networking piece, constantly having conversations with people that are smarter than I am and have more experience than I do. That networking and having conversations with people that have a little more experience is also really important for your own personal professional development.
And we've talked here the past couple minutes about how much the industry has changed. And when you came into the organization as an intern to where you are today, what are some of the biggest things that you have seen that has changed, and how has the marketing industry changed over the last I think you started there in 2014, so 7 years. If I have my math, I've been out of school a while. If my math is right, but how has your specific industry changed since you got into it with the Broncos as an intern?
Yeah, I think, the way, and I kind of alluded to it, the way that fans, consume the game is a little bit different, right? I think the crazy stat is, I think like 72% of fans that are watching an NFL game are also following along on a second screen, right? Whether it's your phone checking your fantasy team or on Twitter or sports betting now, whatever it may be. So I think, from my experience, our fans are looking for something different in the game day experience to keep them engaged. And so, all the time people ask, are the Broncos competing against the Rockies or the Nuggets or the Avalanche? We're not, right? We're competing against, the 60-inch flat screen in your basement, and the bathroom that doesn't have a wait line, and the beer in the fridge that's free, right? These are the things that we're competing against. And so, from a game day entertainment perspective, it's important to consistently be providing, that awesome game day experience so fans are still wanting to come back and view the game and consume the game in that way. And so, That's something that's always a challenge for the industry, right? Is to consistently evolve the game day experience, and our game day does an awesome job, right? We're sold out every game, so they're doing something right.
Yeah.
But I think that's one thing, right? Is how fans consume the product with NFL Sunday Ticket and NFL Game Pass and all these different ways that they're able to consume and view the games. It's definitely different than when I first started, and I'll tell you. The other quick big change that's starting to happen now, and this is a conversation we have all the time, is this emerging Gen Z group and how they are going to consume our product, right? The group that watches TikTok videos and quick YouTube videos, right? How are we going to pivot and make sure that the next generation of NFL fan that is now growing up with the game, how are we tailoring the way that we deliver the brand and the product to them? And I think that's something that a lot of teams are trying to figure out right now. And an ongoing discussion that we have with the Broncos is, they aren't going to consume the game on traditional broadcast like, the generation before them did. And so how do we pivot and adjust and really do a deep dive into researching how we can, engage that group, because they are the next generation of NFL fan that we have to be ready for.
I think that's okay. I wrote that down because that's something I'm going to look into. that we at everybody does, because it is there's so many changes, and it seems over the past 5-6 years that has just gotten so much faster, and it's ever changing, and you always have to be on top of your game. So like you said, being well read and watching all those videos and attending conferences to help with that is super, super important. I got some more questions here on Facebook I want to get to before we wrap up today. This is from Audrey. She's a student at McDaniel College, and she wants to know, looking back on your career, what is something you wish you knew before you started a career in sport marketing?
Yeah, I think I wish I would have known, just the challenges of kind of the work-life balance piece. And I think everybody understands, as a young professional, you're trying to prove yourself. You're trying to outwork other interns. You're trying to compete for opportunities and responsibilities. And I think, there's definitely a balance there, and something that I did not have work-life balance early in my career. And I think, my advice to young professionals is, hey, absolutely, grind it out, be the first one in the office, be the last one to leave the office, but also recognize that, your identity is not found in a job, right? My identity is not the marketing manager of the Denver Broncos. For me, I prioritize, I'm a man of God, I'm a husband and a father, and then I'm a marketing manager. And so I think for me, being able to prioritize, where my identity lies and making sure that my work-life balance reflects that has been an important piece of kind of my personal professional development and growth. There's times where, with our cell phones, we're always on the clock, right? And there's always the next email to answer, but being present with the ones that you love, being present, even if it's only for 10 minutes at night before you go to bed, with your family, I think it's really important to prioritize that, because at the end of the day, sports marketing is what I do. It's not who I am. And I think that, that's a really important kind of mindset that I have taken as I've progressed in this industry, is, recognizing that, this isn't, my identity.
I think that's great, because I think a lot of people, in our age bracket, they get that job and, they want to get that promotion and get to that next level. And they are 100% in, working all the time. Like you said, the phones, you never have an away message because you always got your email with you. But I think that is super, super important. It's something personally I've even tried to get better at. It's kind of stepping out, having that good work-life balance to where you can focus on something else, put the phone away, turn it over, slide out of the way, to where you can focus on, the other important parts of your life, like you said there. Got time for a couple more questions here. Something that has continually come up throughout our conversation today, and, in every program that we do with Before the Snap, is how important it is to network. So we talked about, how to get involved and how important it was, but say there's a student out there who wants to connect with Scott Lantis, the marketing manager of the Denver Broncos. How do they go about doing that? Or how do they go about making that initial connection with somebody who might be in a field or in a position that they might want to have one day or learn a little bit more about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me personally, we'd love to connect with anyone that finds value in it. I'm on LinkedIn. I think that's probably the best resource to connect with me, and also something I think for young professionals to know, right? I mean, make sure the LinkedIn up to date and ready to go. I can tell you, when we get applications for interns, I go to the resume, I read the cover letter, and then, check out the social media accounts and the LinkedIn. And so, LinkedIn is designed for that. So happy to connect with anyone. You can search on LinkedIn and connect that way. And I think that, again, I just want to encourage everyone, the networking piece, reach out in boldness. I think you'd be surprised at how many people you want to pay it forward, right? I was honored that Tom Heckert, 7 years ago, was willing to pay it forward to me and give me an opportunity. And I have that same mindset that I want to, be able to help another young professional, achieve their goals or be a resource to them. So I think you'd be surprised at how many people are willing to be a resource for you if you approach it in a tactful and a self-aware way. And I think, it's important. It really is. I don't think that there's anything more important than the networking piece. So I just want to encourage all of you, to reach out in boldness and definitely make networking a priority.
So for everybody who's watching right now, who whether it's live, whether it's on Facebook a week from now, whether it's on our YouTube channel when it's there, in the comment section on our Facebook feed right now is the link to connect with Scott on LinkedIn, and the email to email our staff, our youth education team here at the Hall of Fame, if you have any questions about internships, careers, resumes, whatever it might be. We're here to help, and I'm sure Scott is there as well. Last question I want to ask, we had so much great advice throughout this entire program, whether it be about, kind of getting your foot in the door, building a network, reaching out, making that connection, building relationships, being the best employee that you can be. If you could sum up everything and kind of let everybody have one takeaway from the program, what is that one takeaway that you want everybody to leave with today?
Yeah, I think the takeaway is, something I went through as an intern with the Broncos. I started with the Broncos making $8 an hour, sleeping on a buddy's couch. And my goal was to just make it through one season with the Broncos. And had graduated from a great school, thought I had a pretty good skill set. And the job description included, doing the mail run and filling the coffee pot, right? And so all of these small, little kind of administrative tasks were part of what my responsibilities were. And, I think there was a moment where I was kind of frustrated at one point, like, man, this is my first professional opportunity, is filling the coffee pot and doing the mail run. But there's a Bible verse in the book of Luke that kind of I took to heart. It says, if you can be faithful in the little things, you can be faithful in the big things. And that kind of became my mantra, as an intern, sweat the small stuff, be very, appreciative and accept these small responsibilities, because ultimately that is the role that you've been given. And it plays into a much bigger piece of what the organization's trying to do. I changed my approach to, hey, if my job is to fill the coffee pot, I'm going to get in early and make sure that, the sales team is properly caffeinated so that they can go off and make the next great sponsorship pitch, right? And so I think, as young professionals, because internships are almost always the way to get involved in the industry, you got to be willing to humble yourself and really own these small menial tasks. Because I can tell you, I can teach somebody how to market, the Denver Broncos, but intangibles like work ethic and humility and being willing to be a great teammate and show up early and be, very faithful in little things, that's something that you kind of have or don't have. So I would just stress that if there's a time when you're low on the totem pole that you feel like your skill set isn't being used to the best or the highest level, sweat the small stuff, be faithful in those little things, and ultimately people are going to recognize and notice, and you'll be able to be entrusted with something a little bit greater down the line. So I think that's my biggest piece of advice, and something that has served me well thus far in my professional career.
I think I can't think of a better way to wrap up this great program. You so many good pieces of one little nuggets of advice within the big umbrella of that one piece you want to take away. So everybody watching today, virtual round of applause, whatever you might be. I want to thank Mr. Scott Lantis, the marketing manager for the Denver Broncos, being part of the program today. But before we leave, just a couple quick announcements. Make sure you tuned in to all of our Hall of Fame social media pages. We're going to have a super big announcement coming out here around the Super Bowl on who that class of 2021 might include. Might be Peyton Manning, might not, who knows. But make sure you're tuned into our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. We have a great podcast hosted by Jameer Howerton here called The Mission. Going to come up with some great interviews of guys who who might get that call, might get that knock at the door to be a Hall of Famer. So make sure you stay tuned in all those platforms to see all the great content that we have here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I'll plug the Denver Broncos as well. Make sure you tune in to all the great stuff that they're putting out as well. Hopefully related to a quarterback that might be a Hall of Famer here in a couple weeks. As I said at the beginning, the game of football wouldn't be like it is today without anybody who had an impact on the game in some way. That obviously, our Hall of Famers are 346 guys who are Hall of Famers. They had a huge impact on the game. But anybody who spent a minute with an NFL team on the field, off the field, in the organization has had an impact on the game. So, Scott, thank you so much for the impact you've had on the game of football globally, as it sounds, as well as the stuff you do for us here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And if Mr. Peyton Manning does get in, we hope to maybe see you here this August. So from us here at the Hall of Fame, Jerry, Nathan, me, our youth education team, all the way up to our president, Mr. David Baker, thank you so much, for taking time out of your day to participate in the Before the Snap program.
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate the opportunity.
For everybody tuning in, thank you so much. Tune in us next Friday, January 15th. We have Omar Jeffco of the Cleveland Browns. And hopefully for all of our Northeast Ohio followers here, we get to talk about another week of the playoffs for the Cleveland Browns organization. So for myself, like I said, Scott, thank you so much for tuning in today. And we'll see you here next week on the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Before the Snap series. Bye, everybody.